Hello, this is Daniel Raymond, the voice behind Ray's Guide. The Starfield Direct presentation on Sunday was exciting and frustrating to me. Let me start with the exciting part. The visuals appear to be top-notch. The planet looks to be amazing, the creatures look well thought out, and animated well. Animating non-bipedal creatures is a challenge because you can't just put somebody in a mocap suit. The most typical way of doing it in a mocap development methodology is to build a mocap rig that moves through servos or strings. In other words, you need puppeteers rather than actors, which makes me wonder how common will these creatures be, or have we seen all of it in one video? I like that we have been given more specifics on the lore of the system and the major NPCs that will be playing a role in the main quest. The skill system and character creation seems extremely well detailed and complex, although most of my actual understanding of the complexity comes from just looking at the scope of it and a couple of examples rather than actually having learned much about it. But the sheer permutations of the number of combinations gives a large number of possibilities. Or does it? Are there some skills that will turn out to be novelties once the obvious meta build is discovered? So before I get accused of being too negative, I do want to say that overall I am excited for Starfield, and if for no other reason, it will revive the single-player sci-fi role-playing game. I think that Squadron 42 will therefore benefit from the revival in the genre. I think that the competitors that should be more worried about it are No Man's Sky, single-player, because the visuals and character depth of Starfield are legions better. But to move on from there, what was the frustrating part? And to put it in a nutshell, this was billed as the Starfield Deep Dive. And it wasn't. Rather than a deep dive, it was a long splash around in the shallow end. Like many others, I had a list of things I wanted to learn from the presentation. And for the most part, those things I still don't know. Now, when I get into some of them, you will likely be tempted to helpfully point out, well, in other Bethesda games, it works like this. Except the whole point of a deep dive is you no longer have to extrapolate from other games. You know what the answer is for Starfield. So, for example, currency. There was some hints, but no actual mention of what the currency was. What were the major sources of getting it? And what were the things that were going to be major money sinks? I can build resource extractors, apparently, but do the presumed NPCs come and buy it from my base? Or must I move every bit of the resource myself to someplace to sell? Will there be varying prices based on what? Also, for example, healing. How is damage sustained? Does my plastic pal, who is fun to be with, heal me? How is respawning handled? These are not trivial elements of gameplay that I am being unreasonable to expect them to be covered in what is billed as a deep dive. Next, vehicles. Prior to the deep dive, many were wondering if there would be vehicles or mounts in the game, but at least through presumed omission, they do not exist. Instead, for planet-side travel, besides walking, we get jetpacks. But how do the jetpacks work? What sort of range do they have? Do they auto-regenerate, or do they require a finite fuel supply that has to be bought and refilled? Can you, with poor planning, be stuck far away from your ship? So then ships. The ship component system looks good as a building block system, but judging from this example, I'm skeptical as to whether there's much of a physics system in place behind it, which makes me wonder about how the handling of these custom ships will be in space combat as well as damage. We are shown damage shots of other ships blowing up, but no example of our own ship being hit. How is damage taken? Does the ship have damage states? Can we do field repairs? We can board other ships, but are the NPC ships smart enough to board us? Can they target our individual ship systems the way that we, apparently with the right skill, can target theirs? Can we repair those specific systems that they have hit? What if we are left adrift into space because, for example, our own gravity drive is destroyed? It would appear from implication that the interplanetary travel is a warping effect to space, then a white flash, and then instantly we're at the destination. This wasn't said, but might be implied from what was shown, unless they just decide to cut that out for time. Similar for planet to surface, there wasn't any example of landing at an unmarked place. Surface to orbit showed an external view of a ship taking off, which may or may not be what we see in the game. So much was either not said or said by implication. Even the game features that they do want to talk about, they seem to discuss in a way to convey as little actual detail as possible. For example, the Bethesda employee says, "I love playing stealth and jumping down on people." Okay, there's stealth gameplay. But how much of it is skill and how much of it is affected by equipment, movement speed, utilizing cover, etc.? Is the stealth skill constant or does it need to be activated? What character limits are imposed by activating it? Now, for those of you wanting to defend Starfield or Bethesda, I'm not actually attacking either of them. except perhaps that there was no way that this presentation should have been promoted as a deep dive. And if you want to say perhaps they aren't saying much because it hasn't been finalized, this is a game 3 months from actual delivery. Everything should be feature frozen and in final polish right now, where there are big problems coming up. And you might want to say that they don't want to give away spoilers, but basic gameplay mechanics isn't, or at least shouldn't be, spoilers. And if it's being treated as spoilers, it might well be that there's a feeling that no matter what the answer is, somebody won't like it. So the best thing is to keep people in the dark because gamers, perennial optimists that we are, will presume the best. Or at least somebody else will want it enough to make a mod to fix it. Which brings me perhaps to the strangest omission in what was billed as a deep dive. No mention of Bethesda's famous support for modding and modding tools, particularly since many game developers only support mods on the PC version of their games and not the console version, as Bethesda has consistently done. And at this point, the existence of future mods is a main reason why most of Bethesda's games have far longer lifespans, both in playtime and sales, than the general run of FPS games. Modding is one of the few ways in which a single-player game can build a real community, because it's the way in which I can have a vision for the game, share it, and others can receive it and enjoy it. Starfield specifically has additional scope for modders because the game universe is so big. There's tons of space for modders to create additional bases and to fill in some of that space on those 1,000 planets. And yet, not a word about modding. Since I can barely conceive of Bethesda not supporting modding in Starfield, I have to surmise it was because they did not want to mention it. But why not? Is there some reason they are specifically de-emphasizing it? It seems odd, particularly in an event billed as Deep Dive. Or maybe, heaven forbid, the new owners have decided they want exclusive control over what is added to their franchise, which would be a great disappointment for the typical Bethesda player, much less the modders. Now for an update on our giveaways. First, we have the 10,000, now 12,000 subscribers thank you giveaway for the LTI Hull C. The colossal cargo container carrying craft are given away when the C goes live, now on the roadmap for 3.20. And the big annual IAE ship giveaway for the winner's choice of the Galaxy Complete, the massive modular mining moving medical machine, or the Benu Big Box Bargain Bazaar known as the Merchantman. One entry per video for both giveaways. Just be a member and be entered automatically. Otherwise, be a subscriber and comment somehow including the secret word. And the secret word for this video is the 8-word phrase I said you might be tempted to say. Fly safe, keep it real, and I'll see you in the verse. This is Danny Raymond for Ray's Guide.